Hello, everyone. Welcome to a Ghost of Yotei trailer breakdown. My name is Tom Caswell, and I am joined by fellow Ghost of Tsushima lover, DeVante Chisholm. DeVante, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm still kind of riding the high off of the
This
reveal.
announcement is this black and white shot of a
Mhm.
valley. So clearly, they're going to bring back the Kurosawa mode that we saw in the first game, which essentially allowed you to do this kind of high contrast black and white look that Kurosawa made color films, but for all of his black and white films, very much in that style. Did you play Tsushima a lot in Kurosawa mode, or no?
I didn't. I thought it was a really cool addition. And I flicked it on and off, like maybe once or twice, but I do love my color.
That's the problem. The game is so vibrant, so colorful,
hmm
that I was in the same boat where I was like, it's cool, but all the colors are, yeah, and we see a lot of that in this trailer as well. So I personally won't be checking it out, but I'm sure some people will play it this way.
Some
Interesting.
of my favorite
Mhm.
times to click it on though were fights. Like when you're out
Yes.
in the open world, it's so colorful and you kind of want to see all of that. But
Yeah.
sometimes, like just that standoff in black and white was just really great
I
to
might
see.
have maybe they implement a way to turn it on and off more easily because I think you had to like go into the menus and like options and
Yeah.
if they just had a thing where it was like you press a button and it instantly switches, which maybe with the power of the PS5
Yeah.
they can do now. So we'll see. Speaking of PS5, this is captured on a base PS5. It says not the PS5
Mhm.
Pro, which I thought was interesting considering we know the Pro exists now, but
Yeah.
clearly you're still going to get a beautiful game even if you're playing on base PS5. There is a little bit of dialogue from a character that we do see later in the trailer. Uh, they say, "We are beyond the edge of Japan" as we get this shot. Oh, actually, it's the next shot, which is this burning battlefield. We hear the
Mhm.
lines, "We are beyond the edge of Japan." And what that person is referring to is that this game is going to take place in Yotei, near Mount Yotei, which is in the modern day Hokkaido region of Japan. At this time in history, which is 300-ish years after the first game, uh, this area is known as Ezo, not under the control of the Japanese government. It
Mhm.
is primarily um, f- filled with the Ainu people, who are a different ethnic group from traditional Japanese in the South, and basically during this time, uh, the they dominated the lands. Japan had a little bit of a foothold, which we'll get into soon, over the southern tip of Hokkaido, which is the second largest island of the four major islands in Japan. And so that it seems that the kind of uh, Japanese expansion into eventually Japan in like the 18th century completely took over Hokkaido, colonized it, brought it under the banner, and made it one unified country. But that's hundreds of years after this, so it's kind of the
Mhm.
beginning of that move from Japan north.
Yeah.
Um,
And it seems like that area is just considered like very dangerous at this
mhm.
time since it wasn't really like colonized or anything yet, which makes me wonder like how dangerous the wildlife is going to be as you're like going around if you're gonna kind of, Far Cry style just get attacked
Yeah,
randomly.
they actually mentioned in the New York Times interview the team went on just they went to go research the area and they went to like a
Mhm.
nature reserve and there were signs everywhere that said beware of bears. Like keep an
Yeah.
eye out for bears. As we transition into the next shot, which is a shot of Mount Yotei, 1603. So we have the exact year. Uh, what's interesting, if people watch the TV show Shogun, this is around the same time period as when that show is set. It's the end of the shogunate. Basically, Japan is in a period of unrest. We get the
Mhm.
line here: people come north to disappear. Essentially, at this time period, Japan is coming to the end of a long stretch of civil war in the country between warring factions and warlords. Again, a lot of the unrest in the country depicted in Shogun. So if you're interested in this game and you want that show is something that can maybe prep you for this a little bit.
It's been on my list for
It's
a while,
phenomenal.
but now I have to like really watch it.
So essentially, that has pushed people to move north because it was, to escape the conflict. And like I said, uh, some Japanese people had a little bit of a foothold in the southern tip, and they just keep moving further and further north, which is leading to a conflict, which starts to create hundreds of years of conflict in Hokkaido, which eventually the land is colonized. But again, we're at the very beginning of this happening. Um,
Yeah, which is interesting. And these games have nothing to do with each other, but we're at the very beginning of this period. And if you look to the very end of this period, that's when fellow PlayStation exclusive Rise of the Ronin takes place in
mm,
around 1863. So I found that a little interesting.
then there's this interesting dichotomy as well, which we'll get into the difference. What I think these games are actually going to be quite different from each other, Tsushima and
Yep.
Yotei, because so much of Tsushima's story was about the Mongols invading Tsushima as they began to try and take mainland Japan, and so much of that story was about the attempted colonization of Tsushima and taking back your land. And this story
Mhm.
might be a kind of an inverse, where now there is the Japanese expansion into the Ainu people's territory and their
Yeah.
land, and so there may be some interesting kind of parallels there now that the shoe in some ways is on the other foot.
Mhm.
So we shall see. But Mount Yotei, apparently, again, according to that New York Times article, was just looking at the mountain was the inspiration for this game and setting it in this place. Apparently, one of the people on the team just stared at it for hours, and there's a shot later in the game that really presents kind of the majesty of this place. And so yeah, we already know quite a bit about what this game could potentially be about.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the next shot, one of the next, it starts to transition into color. We see blood on the snow, and then we see this bloody wolf.
Mhm.
um and we do get a line here that says, "But you are hunting," right, referring to the fact that people are coming north to escape conflict, and the person that this person is talking to is coming to kind of bring conflict to the area.
Mhm.
Um, we see the shot of the wolf. We see the wolf a lot. We think at this point it seems quite adversarial, right? But we kind of come to toward the end of the trailer, see it working with the protagonist Atsu, who we'll see in a moment. So, I mean, almost a slam dunk that we're going to have a Dogmeat companion, a Dogmeat like companion that we can, will have its own gameplay elements. Is that what you're kind of getting the vibes of from this wolf?
Yeah, I'm like mixed because this first appearance of the wolf when you like really look at it, it kind of because of the nighttime it looks like the wolf is in the same place as the narrator we're hearing because like I said dark and just the way it's going back and forth between the two. But if you look, there's snow falling
Mm-hmm.
here and then there's no snow when we see our narrator and our protagonist. So I'm wondering, like, if it is a companion that we have, or if it's just the wolf is just a general, like, symbolism for our main character being a lone wolf and hunting.
Mm-hmm.
But I would love to have a wolf companion. Bring it on.
You also added this note in our doc here. Could be the
Mhm,
Hokkaido wolf, aka the Ezo wolf, that went extinct in 1889. So you found out some
mhm.
information about like a specific breed of wolf from this area, this region.
Yeah, that it
Cool.
seems went extinct around the time this area was really starting to be colonized and the
Mm.
agriculture was starting to be modernized. And they're just like, listen, these wolves are messing up our crops. Get rid of them, and they just kind of killed them all off, which is like sad, but cool at the same time
Yeah,
that
that definitely.
we may get to link up with one in the game.
Yeah, I think that definitely with how much the team at Sucker Punch has played into the history, that knowledge of what eventually happens to this breed of wolf, 100% probably a part of the subliminal kind of messaging of the story. So that's very, very interesting. Okay, the next shot we get is of our narrator, who is seemingly a target of our protagonist, and in this shot they say, and now every ronin here is after you. Obviously, we saw a lot of ronin in the previous game, which is essentially a samurai without a master. They work for hire, kind of like a mercenary, but has all the skills and training of a samurai. However, ronins are way more proliferate in this period because of the decline of the shogunate. Samurai, this is kind of the end of the era of the samurai, again depicted in the TV show Shogun.
I don't know if I want this necessarily, but does make me wonder if there's going to be like a Ronin boss situation, and you have to like take out, like there's multiple, and you're like taking out a couple of them as like you work your way north.
And Tsushima had a similar kind of side quest spin-off activity that was very similar to that, and yeah, I think you're on the right track there. All right, the next shot, this is very interesting. We have a shot of a wanted poster of our protagonist Atsu. It has a sword impaled into it. The sword hilt has a snake on it, and this is not the only time we'll see a sword hilt with an animal. So I actually ran this wanted poster through Google Translate, and granted, who knows how accurate this is, but it does make sense for everything else that we've seen. So on the far left, we have a line here that says a prize for this woman's head. So it's a bounty essentially has been put on Atsu's head. The next line says something to the equivalence of a dark rumor on Mount Yotei. So again, in the first game, Jin became the ghost, and his legend was a part, and people hearing about the Ghost of Tsushima, like not knowing that he was Jin Sakai, the descendant, like all of that. Like, so you've got to imagine it's a similar thing here where Atsu is operating in the shadows, and no one knows who the Ghost of Yotei really is, and so that could be, the dark rumor on Yotei. The third line on the left there says, and I know I'm reading it backwards to how it would be in Japan, right? Because it's because it's right to left there, but it's I think it's just saying how old she is. The translation here wasn't great, but I think it's basically saying she's in her late 20s, like a woman in her late 20s. And then on the right, it just says Zibaoshu, which I Googled that. There wasn't anything specific that came up. I think it might be maybe the name of the person who put the bounty on her head.
Okay.
Not entirely sure there, but there's no other context. So what was interesting about the Ghost of Tsushima was so much about, like, you can either play as a samurai or a ghost, and the story was about Jin becoming the ghost and how that was going against the traditions of his family. It seems that this character is from the jump with a ghost, and I'm really curious as to if they bring that kind of storytelling back of maybe it's the inverse. Maybe they start as the ghost and they become more quote unquote noble toward the end. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that way too, just kind of wrestling in the opposite direction, starting off this way, and then trying to like figure out their like moral path as it goes. Because that snake and then the color yellow just kind of sprinkled throughout the trailer just kind of gives me betrayal vibes. I feel like that's one of the symbolisms for both of those. So I'm kind of feeling like there's betrayal on her end, and maybe if she gets that revenge she's out for and realizes it didn't really do what she wanted it to do for her, it might make her like swing a different way.
One of the next shots we get is our first look at Atsu wearing this straw hat. She has a mask very reminiscent of some of the face masks that we would see in the first game. And she's looking through this broken, um, you know, part of the straw hat, which again kind of gives me the sense of this is a character, an underdog, as they say in the New York Times story. This is a character who is not coming from the kind of affluent background that Jin is coming from, and
Hmm.
is a bit more rough and ready, a bit more ruthless than Jin. We hear them kill the person. They sheathe their blade, and here we see the dual wolf, kind of almost Ouroboros, where they're eating each other's tails. It looks like.
Oh yeah.
This is her primary sword. She has two swords. I looked in later. The other sword just has like a basic hilt, but this is the wolf head one. Again, we've seen the snake hilt. We now have this wolf hilt as well. Looks very reminds me of The Witcher.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
I was thinking it, but sometimes I feel like I bring up Witcher too much, so I'm just like, everything's not The Witcher, just like everything's not Breath of the Wild. But yeah, totally.
So that's cool. So again, as well, playing into the idea that she is a lone wolf. Maybe she has this wolf companion. Wolves, big part of the, and again, like also the idea of the wolf in this region eventually went extinct. What does
Mhm.
that spell for our character? Atsu gets on a horse and rides away from the
Dude, she just slaughtered.
yeah, and you can actually see here um the wrapping on her waist, like the belt. We
Mhm.
actually see it has a blood mark right at the tip over the writing, and we actually see her that wipe happen later in the trailer. And we get a bit of a translation here. So we'll get into that in a bit. We'll get into that in a bit, but a little
Okay.
tease for later on. Um, so she has, as she rides away, she has a what is known as a shamisen, which is kind of like a Japanese banjo.
Mhm.
People, I think, believe that it's styled after something like a banjo, like it came from the West, and then they started making similar instruments in Japan. What this makes, I think we're going to play this. I think we're going to get, because in Tsushima we had that flute mini game, right? Like you play
Mhm.
music, and I think that they'll probably do something similar there. Maybe like The Last of Us with the
Yep.
when you played guitar. I think they probably just went to Naughty Dog and like, hey, can you just give us that mechanic? That's how game engines work, right? Did you mess around a lot with those like side activities in Tsushima?
Yeah, actually, I dipped into a couple of them, partly because I kind of thought I was gonna go for the platinum, but
Yeah.
yeah, they were really fun to do. So when I saw that on her back, I immediately started to wonder if we were gonna get to play it, what's the significance of it, and things like that as well.
Almost assuredly. We then get the Sucker Punch logo confirming this is not Rise of the Ronin 2, as I joked in our Slack, but indeed going to be some kind of follow up to Ghost of Tsushima. And then we get this. I mean, I got chills when I saw this shot. The shot
Yeah,
of
gorgeous.
Mount Yotei. The camera, the cinematography in this shot is, it just made it. They clearly were so inspired by the awe of this mount. You know how
Hmm.
incredible this mountain is, that it's in so many shots,
Hmm.
and
It's a
clearly.
character of in and of itself.
Yeah, and you know what? Tsushima was kind of missing that a little bit. I mean, its areas were amazing and grand, but it didn't have this kind of central landmark that kind of tied everything together. And from
Hmm.
the way this trailer appears, I think that Mount Yotei is going to be such a central, important important element to the
Hmm.
story. And I also think this could be our, the in Tsushima, the title screen, you
Uh,
ride in and it, oh my god, just that makes you have chills. I wonder if this will be maybe that equivalent here.
yeah.
Then we get a shot of Atsu on her horse with a bunch of wild horses, which is
Hmm.
really cool. They're showing off their horse tech. Mount Yotei again in the background. Um, in the first game, you were given a horse. You essentially acquired a horse, and you had one
Hmm.
horse. And I don't really think we saw many other horses.
No, I looked it up because yeah, I was curious about that. I was like mixing it up with a different game. Yeah, like there was no wild horses just out and about.
Yeah.
From what I was finding when I was trying to refresh my memory, it's just those three you can choose from, and then that was really it in terms of like
And you were
what you
locked in.
can
Once
do.
you picked
Yeah.
one and you picked its name, that was it. You didn't. So I wonder if this is going to be more like a Red Dead, where you find a wild horse, and maybe that horse has health, and you have to, if it dies, you have to find another. Again, playing
Hmm.
into the idea that this is a way more rough and ready. You grab what you have at available to you, versus Jin, who is like, I have a horse. I am picking a specific name for this horse, right? Because that was the
Hmm.
other thing. You could pick three names, and they explained what each name meant, and bonding moment. And I wonder if they're going to completely upend that here and have you, yeah, you can find horses in the wild, and if you need a horse, like that's how you get a horse, and it's nameless or whatever.
Yeah.
um
It would be cool, but it's man, like you just mentioned, that bond
yeah.
that you established with that horse in the first one, no spoilers for people who haven't beaten that one, but yeah, in Tsushima, like I got way closer to
Yeah.
that horse than I thought I would. So when certain things in the story happen, I'm just, I felt it.
But it could be something like like when I played Red Dead, like yes, you could grab any old horse, but once I grabbed a horse, I wanted to take care of it, right? Like because I
Yeah.
knew that it could die, and so I would always be brushing it. I would feed it stuff, and if it ever died, like I almost was compelled to go save scum just to save this horse. And so I
Yeah.
wonder if they'll build a mechanic like that where it is like, yeah, it has stamina, it has health, it can die, and what does that mean for your character?
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it just speaks to this game that we can have this conversation about a pretty innocuous potential mechanic, and it be
Uh-huh.
like the crux of the game. More beautiful shots. Again, the color, the yellow that you brought up,
Hmm.
as well. I mean, this game also, correct? If did you feel that it had a bit more of a painterly style as well? I'll like play it for a bit. Like it doesn't look just like Tsushima. It looks a bit
Yeah.
more stylized, and I don't know if that's. I mean, we'll have to see more of the game, but I don't
Hmm.
know. Maybe it's just the fact that it's even more beautiful looking than.
Yeah. I think it's partly the environment, this new area that we're in, which, you know, modern day, like you look up pictures of this area and it also is just absolutely gorgeous. But I think it's that mixed with just, the power of the PlayStation 5. So
Yeah.
I think that is a big thing. Also, this part you have paused right here,
Mhm.
right over there in the left, you can kind of see some smoke that might be one of the like little bath things.
Oh, the steam
That
from the
Yeah.
pools where you would. I
Hmm.
think it expanded your health. You got a bigger
Yeah.
health bar if you went
Hmm.
there. I like
Yeah. I
that.
feel like that could be one over there.
I like that the we seem. I think this is the thing on the mountain in front of her is probably an enemy outpost. I don't think that. I think that's again going to be a core activity of clearing out enemy outposts.
Hmm.
So that's I think what we're seeing there. Uh,
Hot spring. That's the
Hot
word I was looking
spring.
for.
There you go.
That's what I was like,
Yes.
why I'm just a bath? No, hot spring.
We have this shot here, which is Atsu in what looks to be like a friendly outpost, which again, in the main game, you had outposts where you could upgrade your gear and do, the gifts would be left for you depending on how you were performing in the game, and
Hmm.
more outposts would crop up as you cleared out bad outposts. So I think that's where she is. We have a character kneeling by the door that is also playing a shamisen. And so I wonder if there's a way for you to like you find these shamisen players in the world and maybe you play along with them, and that's one of the mechanics.
Hmm.
Um,
And then,
yeah.
because it's the trend right now, maybe there's a corner in here where you're playing like a little like dice or
Oh
card game or
yeah,
something like that,
Sabak.
Yeah, Just something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see that expansion. Ghost of Tsushima is a game that, like, I feel totally absorbed by its world, engrossed in its world, and if they can expand, because I think in the Outpost it really just was upgrading your stuff, like
Pretty
upgrading your
much.
bow or your armor. If they make it a little bit more like you can come here to like chill out, that
Mhm.
would be awesome.
Eat some food, get a buff.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So we have another shot here. So we see her shamisen a little bit clearer, but most interesting, we see the Northern Lights,
Mhm.
which I found interesting because it's something that you can really only see in the north, and but it turns out Hokkaido is the really the only place in Japan. It's just north enough that you can potentially see the lights there.
Mhm.
Granted, apparently they have more of a red hue because it's so much further south than like Iceland or any of these other places. Apparently the
Yeah.
way that the lighting works, it wouldn't be green like this like it is if you see it in shots in Iceland. Also, as I've seen them in person, they don't look this colorful. It's more
Yeah.
like a shimmering veil. Regardless, though, I like this detail of like, no, this is something that the region is known for. Like, Japanese people travel to Hokkaido sometimes to go see the lights. And so that's great. And your horse is having a snooze, so he's safe. Or he's,
Missing the lights.
yeah, exactly. Now, this is a pretty traditional shot from the first game. Going to confront someone, have a, you know, one of those one-on-one sword fights, so that seems to be
Mhm.
returning here. And we get her trudging through the snow, facing someone else down. We have the shot of her preparing her blade, very much like in Tsushima.
Mhm.
I tried to look up this kind of like design on her hat, which has these like arches, these double arches. I
Mhm.
couldn't find anything. I think I think it might even be nothing. It might just be because Tsushima had so many cosmetics. I don't know if it's playing into the story at all, but I couldn't find anything that kind of referenced that design. But yeah, it looks like we're going to get a lot
Yeah.
of the similar kind of showdown battles. Her taking on what seems to be an outpost. They have a banner with a symbol on there. So who knows who these people are? But again, very similar to what we saw in Tsushima.
Mhm.
Yellow. There's a
Yep.
lot of yellow here as well in this shot.
This could also I don't know if it's, like, very similar to the place in the front. I know the gate is, but, this could also even just be, like, what we saw at the end or at the beginning, and this is before she
Oh,
took
sure.
everybody out.
100%. Definitely could be the case. Now, the next shot is her wiping. I mentioned it earlier. She's wiping the sword on this cloth that is like essentially a belt that she's wearing. I
Mhm.
ran this through Google Translate as well. It didn't pick up everything, but it did pick up the symbol right above her blade here. Apparently, it translates to spider.
Okay.
So I'm wondering, we've got a wolf, we've got a snake, we potentially have a spider. I'm wondering if she is a part of some kind, like she is. It's almost like Assassin's Creed. There
Yeah.
are, or where it's like, oh, the order of the animals or whatever, and there's a spider, there's a snake. Maybe she's one of them, or maybe she took out the wolf and took his blade. And like,
Mm.
and I think like she's wiping the names off as she kills them. She's wiping their
Yeah.
blood on the thing, and there's someone that has a spider sword or something like that, and maybe you can claim their swords. And because again, the customization, having the different swords, that was very much a part of Tsushima. Um, Obviously, jumping to a lot of conclusions here, but
Yeah.
it
That's sick,
sounds like
though.
something that could happen in the game.
Yeah, because yeah, I was just thinking like, like a simple kill list, but having it be something like that and taking their swords sounds like a really cool idea that as a way to unlock the different stances in the game. That would be amazing.
Yeah, because in the first game, I very much was not disappointed, but the swords were only cosmetic, and you kind of just
Hmm.
stumbled across them. If they built in this thing where it's like you can get different swords, maybe they do have different properties, like one is faster, one is heavier, one is better for jabbing. I don't know,
Hmm.
and it's also built around you acquire them via taking out your targets. That could be really cool, and
Yeah.
it's potentially being teased here. Again, I don't know for sure if this says spider. I don't know how accurate the translation is, but it could line up. And then yeah, we get the shot of the wolf strutting in. We see Atsu for the first time without their mask. This is
Hmm.
it's been revealed that this is played by Erika Ishii, who is a actor. I believe they're the voice actor, one of the voice actors for the Rook in Dragon Age as well, which is coming out soon.
Nice.
So they are just killing it, which is great. Um, and yeah, you think like they're going to get attacked by the wolf, but no, the wolf is like, no, we're aligned. You're a lone
Hmm.
wolf. I'm a lone wolf. We see her with the dual wielding, and then they look off to Mount Yotei again.
And again, biggest splash of yellow
Mm-hmm.
right there at the
So
end
much
with
yellow.
the clothes, the wolf's eyes, the teeth, the strings on the guitar
Yes, I didn't even notice that either.
or even yellow, flowers, trees in the distance.
Yeah, this
There's
tree I
so
was going
much.
to say in the center looks
There's
very
just so much of it
prominent.
sprinkled everywhere.
Looks almost like a waypoint or something that you would go, and maybe there's a side quest. You write a haiku. Obviously, that was something you did in the first game. I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh, but that tree definitely looks like something. And obviously, again, we have Mount Yotei in the background. Atsu holding a what is this called? It is called Kusarigama, which is a weapon that you couldn't fight. I mean, you only used swords pretty much.
Hmm.
Yeah, you only used swords. You had like throwing knives and a bow and all that, but you
Yeah.
didn't have other melee options. And in this like little splash at the end, we see her wielding multiple different weapons. So maybe
Hmm.
you can pick them up off the ground. I don't know if this is like an enemy dropped it and you can pick it up and use it, or if you can equip different things. Yeah, but we're gonna get a lot more options for melee, so
Yeah.
that's
I
cool.
believe it was in that New York Times interview that they spoke about repetition, and that's why they decided to throw in new weapons as well as the firearms, which I'm sure we're about to speak about.
Yeah, that was yeah. They basically essentially said that that was a part of the inspiration for wanting to do the big time jump because it allowed for. Although I did look into it, and the Kusarigama did exist during Jin's time, but again,
Hmm.
Jin being the character he is, that might have been a bridge too far for,
Yeah.
even though he was going into the ghost, he was that kind of balance, he was never going to use anything other than his sword, maybe the throwing knives and all that, but clearly
Hmm.
Atsu has no inhibitions when it comes to what she uses and when, which we do see in the very final shot of the trailer, which is this really cool punch in of her using the rifle. So we're going to get
Hmm.
additional ranged options. We did have the bow, but yeah, we got firearms. Gunpowder is alive and well. Um, I'm a little concerned because every time I've played, like Neo had a rifle you could use. I think Wolong Fallen Dynasty, you also had a rifle you could use, and
Hmm.
they didn't feel great. Because those games were so melee focused that I just don't think
Yeah.
that I hope that they bring a level of polish that makes utilizing something like this um something that you'd actually want to do and make sense for certain specific situations.
Yeah, that's what I think. I feel like it'll probably be rare that you have a gun in this game.
Yeah.
And the majority of the time, you'll have different options for melee, but then the occasional gun.
Yeah, it'll probably be something like you get to an outpost, you have a rifle, you can take one or two people out from a distance, and then you've got to go in for the melee. Well, I mean, we'll see. Obviously,
Hmm.
Ghost of Tsushima's combat was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I hold it in very high regard, and yeah, I'm sure that the team will bring a level of polish to it. And that's the trailer coming out in 2025. We'll see when in 2025 that happens. Anything else,
Just
DeVante?
not, just please not too close to GTA whenever that comes out.
If it
Give me
comes
a little
out.
space. Give me a little space between them. The
Rockstar,
only
you
other
have my
thing,
permission to delay GTA to 2026 so I can play as much of this game as possible.
I don't know about that one.
Commenters will eat me
The only
alive.
other thing I think I wanted to talk about was the use of the word spin-offs. Did you notice this?
In the New York Times interview.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ghost of Yotei is the beginning of an official franchise that will include at least one movie and other spin-offs.
Mm.
So the word other spin-offs, are they referring to the
The movie
movie as
spinning
being a
off. Yeah.
spin-off, or is this a spin-off and we're, gonna go back to Jin's story?
I don't.
Or is it like
Mm,
Assassin's Creed where it's just like, Ghost is the brand, but every game is gonna be different subtitle, different protagonist, location, and story?
I think the latter is the smarter move.
Mhm.
I think we might actually do a Jin thing, but it could be a spin-off. It wouldn't be Ghost of Tsushima. It would be maybe an indie game or something that gets the license, or they make something smaller. Maybe they do like these standalone DLC kind of things where it's a Jin story, but it's really short, and it's in a
Mhm.
very kind of like the Iki Island, I believe is what it's called,
Yeah,
um,
I remember that.
which was again kind of like a standalone spin-off. Maybe they'll do a multiplayer game because Legends, right? Is this going to have a Legends, which
Yeah.
was very well regarded? Is that going to become a standalone thing? And we have Jin there, and it's the ghosts of all across the different ways. I don't
Mhm.
necessarily think that. I think they very much think of this as the second Ghost game, and if they make a third, it will be the Ghost of Tokyo, and it's set in modern day. I don't know, whatever it may end up being. But no, I don't. I think we might be reading too much into it. I also think it's entirely possible that we get additional Jin stuff, whether that even be in this game. Maybe
Yeah,
they
I was
release
gonna
a
ask that
DLC
too.
where she, how much, and that's the thing is like, I think there's a ton of potential for Jin to be a big presence in this game, and what
Yeah.
he did and his story. Her learning about his legend and using that to become the ghost and carrying the mantle in a more literal way. Um,
Mhm.
and
'Cause it's 300 years later, but yeah, I figured like there would be some type of reference to him,
yeah,
even if it's like small or passing. Maybe in that hub area or something. Maybe there's a song that you play on the guitar that's kind of about his legend.
yeah, yeah. I think they could find very interesting ways to work him in, work his story in, and explore that further without. But was surprised when this showed up and it was not Jin,
Yeah,
and
same.
but I think it was the right call, and I'm very, very, very excited for this game.
Yeah.
But what about you in the comments? Let us know if there's anything you noticed in the Ghost of Yotei trailer, and what you are hoping for, what your theories are about the game. And I'm sure we will do some more trailer breakdowns for it in the future. So for everything Ghost of Yotei, thank you for joining us, and stick right here on GameSpot.